All right, welcome back to the Thursday edition of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. We are recording just prior to puck drop of the Minnetonka Skippers taking on who, Troy, today?
We are playing Roseville. Well, it's Roseville / Matamita. It's a combined program. But they use the Roseville city as the main city on the team.
Okay, it's going to be a tough one for you, though, Troy, because now you got to be focused on the pod and you got to be all geared up for the game. This is stretching your capacity today, huh?
It'll be interesting. I've already let the stress get to me a little bit, I think. But before we even start any of the show, I have to give a little shout out. I know I did this last time when we had girls on the Minnetonka team make the, I don't know what you call it, the rivalry series with Canada, but they announced the 2023 Team USA U18 Women's World roster. And for Team USA, we had 5 players from our high school team make the roster. So I wanted to give a shout out. Lindsay Avar, Kendra Distad, 2 forwards. Ava Lindsay is another forward. And then Ellie Kleppinger, who's a defense. And then finally the big one, the goalie, Layla Hemp, made the U18 Team USA roster, which is awesome. And then we have one player who is an alternate, Grace Sedura, in case anyone gets injured and she needs to step in. So congrats to all of them. And it's really awesome for our program.
So how many roster spots are there total?
I think there's 20-ish.
To have 5 from one high school is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I just counted 23 total. So 3 goalies, 20 skaters. Then a couple alternates.
Sure. Were there any other high schools that had more than Minnetonka, or is Minnetonka number one?
Well, here's the funny thing with how hockey at the high school level is set up in the U.S. Only Minnesota will have high school kids. The rest are usually club teams. For Minnesota, there was an Andover high school girl, a Stillwater high school girl. But besides that, in Minnetonka, there's one from Maple Grove High School. The rest will be like Little Caesars, Selects Academy, Shattuck St. Mary. Won't get into them. They're a high school, but they are a private school that actively recruits and all that stuff. So they cannot play in the high school league. They go around and play these other club teams. It's a great program. But yeah, so that's kind of how it goes. So it'll be cool. It starts January 8th, I think, in Sweden. And the only thing that stinks is we lose all 5 of those players for 2 weeks.
And are you now the U18 goalie coach since you represent the U18 goalie from your team, or does it not work like that?
It doesn't work like that. I have to stay around. They have really good coaches for Team USA.
Gotcha.
So I am happy to let them go work with them.
Another thing I have to ask you about is how it was the post-Expo hangover for you. I didn't talk to you on purpose for the last couple of days, figuring that we just needed to sleep a lot and decompress a little bit. Was it as real for you as it was for me?
Yeah, I'm tired. And it's like, and nothing stops in your personal life, right? It's not like, oh, you went to the Expo here, have a couple of days off. No, you still got work. You still have other obligations like me, hockey coaching. Today is kind of the first day I've kind of gotten back into a routine. But again, I'm super stressed out with all the other stuff going on.
Yeah, I've been really tired, like really, really tired. I just think the adrenaline rush, the drive. We did survive the drive.
We did survive.
So that was good. But yeah, I am starting to feel a little bit normal today too. And obviously we're back to kind of our regular show schedule. So that's nice too. A little bit of a programming note too before we get started. We are scheduled to have on Monday's show Billy Cilio from Upper Deck. He is the product manager for Series 1. Metal Universe, and some other brands. So obviously with the timing of the Series 1 release last week, we thought it'd be a great time to have him on, and he's a great guy. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully nothing comes up that derails that interview, but he should be on the show Monday. The Gong Show is a Patreon podcast, so you right now can take advantage of our 99 tier and be one of the first 99 supporters and forever have that title for only $5 a month. What your $5 does is it helps us cover show expenses, continue to produce more and better hockey card content, and help fund future initiatives that we have planned to do our little part to help grow the hobby. You can find our Patreon by going to the Patreon website. It's Patreon and searching for Hockey Cards Gongshow. You can also visit the link in the show description for whatever podcast app you're listening to us on, or you can go to our Instagram profile, and there's a link there to our link tree that has a link directly to our Patreon page. With that being said, Troy, why don't you go ahead and give us the game plan for today?
We're going to continue with the kind of vintage episode where we look at the greatest hockey players to wear the jersey number that matches our episode number, and we are getting a 2-for-1 special today. We're doing the makeup from number 31 for last episode since we were in Toronto and did kind of a special show, and then we will also do number 32. Then it's on to movers and shakers, who's hot, who's on the struggle bus. Then we will do an expo recap, kind of look at things that maybe we forgot or any other additional thoughts that we had. This will be followed by hobby news and then a look at 2022-23 Series 1 Young Gun values. And we will finish with new product releases and listener mailbag. All right.
Deep breath, Troy.
Oh, yeah, deep breath.
You got to do two players for our vintage episode numbers and jersey numbers.
I do. I get to do 2 players. I tried to shorten them up, but then in true fashion, one of them's pretty short, but we'll start with number 31. So according to the Hockey Writers, number 31, greatest player to wear. Number 31, it's a goalie. We kind of knew that. Number 31 is Carey Price. So this now is, I think, our 3rd straight goalie, Josh. Does that sound right? I think it's 3rd straight goalie that we've had.
I think it was Ken Dryden, then Martin Brodeur, and now Carey Price.
Yeah, and then Carey Price. And now, just to give a hint, number 32 is not a goalie there.
Ooh.
So you can look forward to someone else. All right, let's start. Carey Price, goalie, obviously. Kind of a very unique situation with Carey Price going on right now. He's likely not to play this year. He's had some significant knee injury issues. And as of today, though, he has not announced his retirement. So there's kind of a glimmer of hope he may come back, but it's kind of a sad situation. You hope he does come back. Obviously, a really good goalie, and I'd like to see him at least finish. But if he can't, obviously understand. So far in his career, he has played 712 regular season games over a 15-year NHL career, which he hopes to continue on, but we will see what happens with all the injury news and maybe upcoming surgeries that might have to happen. He has played all 15 years with the Montreal Canadiens, so a pretty cool accomplishment there. Looking at his past, his awards, and other accomplishments that he's had, he was on the All-Rookie team in the 2007-2008 season. He was the Hart Trophy winner in 2014-15. We don't have a lot of goalies that win the Hart Trophy. He was the 8th goalie to win it and the last 2. He's a one-time Vezina Trophy winner. He won that in 2014 and 15, obviously, when he won the Hart Trophy. One-time Jennings Award winner. He was also the 2014-15 Pearson Award winner, which is now renamed the Ted Lindsay Award. And he was also the 21-22 Masterson Trophy winner. His career regular season record is 361 wins, which puts him 22nd all-time for goalies, 261 losses, 71 ties. He has a career goals against of 2.51, which puts him 39th all-time for goalies, and a career save percentage of .9167, which puts him at 17th all-time. Also, he's had 49 career shutouts, which puts him 33rd all-time. Price has made the playoffs in 10 of his 15 NHL seasons, 92 games played, which puts him 25th all-time, and he has a record of 43 wins and 45 losses. So I think it's the first goalie we've seen with maybe a losing record in the playoffs, which is kind of interesting. But he's performed well, 2.39 goals against and a .919 save percentage with 8 career playoff shutouts.
You can tell looking at goalies how the defense, it's in any sport really, when you get to playoffs, defense really tightens up. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we've come across any goalie who's had a lower goals against or save percentage in the playoffs than in the regular season. Yeah, and if we have it hasn't been by much if it is lower, but you obviously see that trend. I think there's a couple that we've looked at in the past, but that's all right. Price. So let's talk about how his play style was. If anyone's watched him, he is one of those goalies. He does not make flashy saves. He is one of those guys that can make difficult saves look very easy. He is a very mobile goalie, but he's very quick and tight with his movements. He's one of those guys, we talk about this all the time. He beats the puck to where it's going, and he's always in position. He's got really good rebound control, and he's also been seen when you talk to, or when the teammates, reading interviews, they just say he's a steady presence in the net, and he never panicked.
which obviously we like to harp on Fleury, who looks like every shot is panicking and looking around. But with Price, and this is kind of a trend overall, if you look at goalies, a lot of times the not flashy goalies are the ones that are really good and they're in position and they don't need to make the crazy saves. Not to say having that athletic ability is bad, or sometimes it happens, but this definitely with Carey Price, he was a lot more under control than some of the goalies that are.
Would you say that like tactician would be a good word to describe?
It'd definitely be a tactician.
So just technically in the right spot, playing the right angles.
Yep.
Right, most efficient movements, that sort of thing.
Yep, that's definitely his game. And every interview you read about him, it's a constant theme that comes up. From the 2013-14 season through 2016-17, Price had a 4-year span where you could make the argument he was the best goalie in the NHL and he might have been the best player in the NHL. If you go and look at his stats, he had a really terrific run for those 4 years. Price doesn't have any Stanley Cups, which I think will always be that lingering thing, and maybe that's why he still wants to keep playing. So I don't know what happens when Hall of Fame voting comes around. If that's one of those things they look at. I don't even know where he's at in the Hall of Fame. I didn't really look at all the other goalies he's similar to. But 15 years with the Canadiens is a pretty good barometer right there, and he's definitely got the stats. And from all accounts, he's just an excellent person, great goalie. So we'll see how that ends up in his career. Hopefully you can play and not have to end it. Kind of go out on your own terms.
How many goalies are in the Hall, do you think, that haven't won a cup? I know you don't know the answer to that.
Great question. But I bet it's few. Maybe. Well, I don't know. Well, I was thinking about maybe older goalies, but then there was only, 6 teams, 7 teams back in the day. So they all probably had a shot at some point. But yeah. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm guessing even just looking at overall players in the Hall of Fame without a cup, it's something I should probably look at and see. It'd be an interesting fact. So with Carey Price, I usually did fun facts. I did an interesting fact with him. He, and I'm going to botch this, and I apologize. He is...
Dude, wait, stop. I'm so excited for this. I was looking at the sheet with the show notes, and this could be... okay, everybody take a deep breath. Let's leave... the appropriate amount of space in between in case we need to clip this and forever make this a Gong Show moment. I swear to God, it's my birthday. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm ready. Go.
All right. So Carey Price is of Alcacho First Nation descent through his mother. And interesting fact, his mother led, and I can't know if it's led or still leads the Alcacho as chief. And Carey Price was named as an honorary co-chair at the 2010 National Aboriginal Hockey Championships that were held in Ottawa in May 2010. To me, that is a fascinating fact. Interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know he had that heritage. And I think he's probably obviously the first Alcacho Nation player in the NHL. He talks about it in his interviews. If you read enough interviews, he will frequently talk about his heritage. And it's kind of interesting when he accepted the Vezina Trophy when he won it, he actually gave a big speech about, and I want to make sure I use the right term. He said native kids, make sure those native kids know that there's an opportunity to play hockey in the future if that's something you want to do. It's a really good speech. But that was a very interesting fact. And he's also been very open about discussing heritage and the issues with the residential schools issue that's come up in Canada that they're kind of, I don't know what the right word is, grappling with the repercussions of that. If you don't know that story, we're not going to get into it. You can read about it. It's a pretty sad situation that they've kind of figured out up there. Also, and this isn't an interesting fact, but it's a fact about Carey Price. He's very open about he entered the NHL mental health / substance abuse program. And just if you read interviews, what's going on with him and how he's gotten help. It's good to see that a player talks about this because we know in sports, it's like, don't say anything, don't bring up your weaknesses, but he's obviously been very open about it. So that's kind of a quick recap. I know it's short, but quick recap of the Carey Price career.
I have an update for you.
Okay.
First of all, I think you did a really good job pronouncing the name, much to my kudos to you, but a little bit disappointment to me. And this is a little bit on the fly research. I found an article from Hockey Writers that it says 5 goalies are in the Hall of Fame that have not won the cup.
Okay.
It looks like Tretiak, St. Pierre, Roy Warders, Chuck Rayner, and Eddie Giacomin.
Interesting.
So it would be pretty incredible
Yeah.
for him to make it without, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but that does seem to be a big factor. And I guess there's 3 goalies who have won the cup that are not in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Interesting
But that
stuff.
doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right, though, does it?
That seems weird, but on the fly research, what can you do?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Carey Price hockey cards.
All right, Hockey Cards. I just looked at his rookie card. It's his 2007-8 Upper Deck Series 1. It's a Young Guns, obviously, number 227. There's kind of, it's low pop, not that frequent of sales, but a good thing about it is in the card ladder index, so you can kind of track it there. The PSA 10 version has a pop of 276. The most recent card ladder value is around $820. If you look at sales, they're right around that area. The BGS 9.5 has a higher pop at $690, and it trades right in the $400 range with the last sale I could find in September of 25th for $372. And then just to give you an idea, if you jump down to the PSA 9, has a pop of $229, and it's around $240. So just give you an idea where Carey Price's rookie stuff is. Definitely attainable. Definitely a cool card, but I don't know. I'm not interested in Carey Price as from a card perspective, but it's pretty. I mean, it will be interesting to see if he hits the Hall of Fame and if what that can do to it.
I think to the Stanley Cup thing, how that'll affect his long-term value will be, because like you said, for that run, you could make the argument he was the best player in the NHL.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he didn't win a cup because of him.
No.
If that makes sense. But
yeah, and I'm curious, like,
just didn't have the team around him.
Yeah, I'm curious what our listeners think of him, because he seems kind of polarizing at times. We've seen comments like, I don't know, when we've talked about goalies, comments saying, please don't put Carey Price in the top 3 or whatever because so and so. But I don't know. I'm just curious how Montreal fans kind of feel where he's at, and his kind of legacy would kind of be interesting.
Well, you know how we do each month that social post where we show the most cards sold per player, and we show the top 25. He's in the top 25 every month.
Interesting.
Still, even though he hasn't played for the last year or so, right, with injuries. So I don't know. Just based on that, I would say he's still pretty popular.
Yeah, no, that's a good data point right there. All right, that was Carey Price. Let's go on to number 32. Not a goalie, which is surprising, but number 32 is Dale Hunter, everyone's favorite center / goon / enforcer. We didn't bring him up on our favorite goons because he wasn't my favorite goon, but he is definitely I'll use the enforcer term. He's definitely a top enforcer. So let's look at Dale. He played 1,407 regular season games over a 19-year NHL career. Pretty fascinating. He played that long and that many games. Played 8 years with the Quebec Nordiques / Avalanche. He started with the Nordiques. Then he played 12 years with the Washington Capitals, and then he ended his career with Colorado. That's kind of why I added Quebec / Colorado. So now let's get his awards and accomplishments. Obviously, Hunter, he has no Stanley Cups. He didn't win any individual awards from the NHL. However,
sounds promising.
However, he is second all-time in career penalty minutes with 3,565. But, and here's the very interesting thing about Dale Hunter. He has a record that probably will never be touched. Kind of like the Gretzky point record. Dale Hunter kind of has one in that too, and I'm going to actually tease it. It'll be in the fun facts section, so we'll get to that one. Okay. Capitals retired as number 32. I found that interesting because he had a good career at Washington. Played there 12 years. I think he has a lot of love in that city. Obviously, he was willing to do anything for his team to win. Over his career, he had 323 goals, 697 assists for 1,020 points. That is, to me, one of the fascinating things. For spending 3,500 plus odd minutes in the penalty box, he's still over 1,000 points. So that's kind of interesting.
That's crazy, dude.
He made the playoffs in 18 of his 19 years in the NHL with 186 games played, 42 goals, 76 assists for 118 points. Here we go. This guy is just like a conundrum to me. 9 times he scored 20 or more goals in a season.
Wow. And can I just go back to the? Yeah. Can I go back to the penalty minutes? I was just using my phone calculator here because I'm very scientific like that. And so 3,565 penalty minutes, right? So if I take that and I'm going to do math on the podcast here, 3,565, and there's 60 minutes in a game?
60 minutes in a game.
Right?
Regulation.
He spent 59 games in the penalty.
I love it. So
well, and that's assuming every penalty was 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So probably more than that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. All right. In the 83-84 season, he actually scored 79 points in 77 games. So he was actually an over a point per game player in that season. I kind of mentioned this already, but it's just crazy productive, or it's crazy how productive he was while racking up such huge penalty minutes every season. So we got to bring up his most infamous, I think, thuggery is when he got hit with a 21-game suspension for his hit on Pierre Turgeon after Turgeon scored a goal in Game 6 of the then Patrick Division semifinal. It was after the goal scored. Hunter at the time said, he didn't know he scored, but then finally admitted years later that it was not the right thing to do. I mean, he just drills him into the boards. I think Turgeon concussion. I think he got separated his shoulder. It's a brutal hit. The 21-game suspension was very warranted. So now let's talk about his fun fact. And I kind of mentioned, I've said both the numbers, but he is the only player in NHL history to have over 3,000 penalty minutes and scored over 1,000 points. That record with the game today, if it keeps like this, I don't think that ever gets touched. That's one of those that might be out there for a while. His nickname was the Nuisance, which I really like because he was a nuisance. However, he's one of those guys, you hated him when you played against him, but if he was on your team, he was your best friend. He was the greatest guy in the world to have on the team. And, I talk about his productivity. You can see he was productive. Look at his junior league stats. I mean, he scored over 100 points in a season in juniors. He had skill. It's obviously he had skill. And I couldn't find an interview where he's talked about his enforcing and, physical play, but it's like, at what point does that switch flip where you're this very skilled player? In juniors, he still had a ton of penalty minutes too. It's not like he was an angel and then came to the NHL. But maybe it's just one of those players where he thought he could keep his role. And he obviously played 19 years, so it's not like people were glad to have him on their team.
I think we've talked about this before, right? Where at some point, every NHL goon had to have been the best player on their team just to make it to the NHL.
Yeah.
Right? And
I'm sure there's that oddball case where he was just a goon, but it's very, very rare. They all have skill. To get to the NHL, you have to have skill.
Correct.
All right, let's go his cards. This will be short. His rookie card is an 81-82 OPG number 277. Pop counts are going to be minuscule, as everyone, I'm assuming, can figure out. His PSA 10 of his rookie card is a pop 22. Last comp was $290 sold by PWCC in May of this year. I couldn't find any BGS sales of the 9.5 or the 9s, and the pops are super low on that too. The BGS 9.5 is a pop of 23. The BGS 9 is a pop of 19. And even the PSA 9 has a pop of 48, and I couldn't find any sales. And the PSA 8 has a pop of 82, but you can probably figure out what the price of that is, but I didn't look too hard on sales on that. But so it's interesting. I mean, if you're an enforcer collector, you can get that pretty cheap. That'd be a cool card.
I was just going to say, even if you're a Caps fan too, that he's a pretty interesting guy, interesting player. That's not if you could find the card at a pop 22, it's pretty cheap price.
And he's in the Nordiques jersey, which we all love. Nordique jerseys are sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet too.
And I had a Nordiques. Go ahead.
I had a Nordiques jersey growing up.
Nice. I will say this.
Sakic.
I didn't write this down, but I remember reading it. When he was traded from Quebec to Washington, they said that kind of started the downfall of Quebec. And kind of, he was like one of that fan favorite, and he was part of this great group. He played with the stats things that we talked about. And once they traded him, that kind of led to a downfall. I'm not going to say that's the reason they moved, but guess who ended up being drafted from the draft pick Quebec got when they traded Dale Hunter?
Sakic.
There you go. They got Joe Sakic. Yeah. So that's one of those little interesting nuggets.
Worked out.
One
can say. All right, Troy, boy, are you exhausted? You've never had to do 2 in one show.
My mouth's a little dry.
Yeah. Ooh. All right, take a minute and rest up, I guess, a little bit. All right, we'll move into movers and shakers. Like always, we'll start with who's hot. The first guy we want to cover this week is Mikko Rantanen. You ever heard of him, Troy?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, me too. He's currently number 3 in the NHL in scoring with 25 points in 14 games, notching 11 goals and 14 assists. Also, Troy, he's coming off a career-best 92 points last season. And, of course, won the Stanley Cup. So things keep getting better for Mr. Rantanen, it looks like. I think it helps playing on Colorado's top line with Arturi Lehkonen and Nathan MacKinnon. And also in the top power play unit when you can throw Makar in there, too. Yeah. He just gets tons of opportunities to score. And so far, he's definitely taking advantage of them. From a hockey card perspective, he is a 2015 young gun. His PSA 10 popped 702. So pretty decent sized population. Last sold for $164 US. It's up about 42% in the past 2 weeks. And in case you're wondering, the all-time high for the card is 349 in May of 2021. So it's less than half of its all-time high, if I can do math. It's $1 less than half, I believe. No,
I think when we say hit the all-time high, everyone needs to assume May 2021. I seem like that's about
$21 less than half.
Yeah.
We can't do math. So great start, great team. I don't know for him what his upside would be.
I mean, he's still young too. I mean, he's 26, coming into his prime. I mean, I always like these guys that are just coming into their prime. He's not there yet, so there's still theoretically growth to get even better. But again, I don't know Mikko Rantanen the best. Obviously, I know he's a forward. I know him well enough to know he's not a defenseman. How about that?
You know him well enough that if you saw him at a party, you'd say hi, but you wouldn't necessarily invite him to your birthday party. Is that what you're saying? Or
yeah, and I mean, I like, and you look at his career. I mean, career year last year. I mean, he's had seasons of 80-some points before that, so that's really intriguing. Yeah, I kind of like his trend.
I like him a lot as a player. Here's my hobby pause or area of concern with him. And I want to see if you agree with this. So there's this theory, and I know we've talked a little bit about this. I'm not sure on the show, but definitely just in our own banter, that it feels like in hockey that the collecting universe gives basically its endorsement to one player on every team, right? You go back to if Leon Draisaitl played on the Calgary Flames and had the stats he did, his Young Guns would be worth 3 times what it is right now, right? And you can almost go team by team and it's sort of why is Panarin undervalued on the Rangers? Or, there's just lots of cases like that. And what worries me about Colorado, and as it pertains to Rantanen, is you have Makar, who from a hobby perspective is number 1 with a bullet, right? Then you have MacKinnon, who maybe some would even say is number 1. Is there enough room from a hobby perspective for a lot of increase when it comes to a third guy in a Mikko Rantanen? I don't know.
It's interesting because if we're going to say hockey is a collector-driven sport, there's only, and you're a Colorado fan, there's only a finite amount of dollars you have to allocate to certain players. And I can see your point kind of being you're maybe allocating to Makar over these other guys or over Rantanen. It's an interesting case. You should do a study on it.
Thanks for signing me up for work. But yeah, it would be interesting to find out, that's for sure. Okay, let's move on to the next guy. Probably could have talked about him for the last week plus, but we got to mention Tage Thompson. He is building off of a very strong 2021-22 where he had 68 points. Still 25-year-old Sabres forward, has 21 points in 16 games so far, so 11 goals and 10 assists. I think, Trey, this is a really good example of a guy who had a slow start to his career. He was up and down. He played for a year in the NHL, and then I think for a year went back to the AHL predominantly. I know his wife had cancer in 2019, so it seems like there's a lot going on. To some degree, it sounds like a lot of people had, before last year, had labeled him a bust. Then he has a pretty good year, like I mentioned, with 68 points, and in August, Buffalo signs him to a 7-year extension, which, given a slow start, and people thinking he was a bust, I think that was a little bit of a head scratcher for many, wondering, okay, he finally has one good season. Now we're going to lock him in for a long time. Seemed maybe a little risky to some at the time, but so far he is making it look like a pretty good deal. I don't know if you picked up on this in Toronto. We might have mentioned this on our recap too. When we talked to dealers and we were asking them, okay, who are the hot players? Who are people asking for in almost every case? Last week, it was Tage Thompson. So I think that's a good indicator that there's a lot of hobby hype right now for him. From a Hockey Cards perspective, last sale of his 2017 Young Gun PSA 10. Okay, check this out. Pop 34.
Wow.
That's crazy. It last sold for $212 on November 8th. This is up 25% from its previous sale of $169 on October 31st. I'm guessing, given how the start has gone, that there's a few cards at PSA right now. So I would expect that over the next month or two, that pop count should at least double, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. And I believe this is when we had the show about the expo. Obviously, you mentioned talking to a lot of dealers, but a lot of dealers said they didn't even have his cards because they either got bought up right away at the table and they wish they had more. They didn't bring enough, or they just didn't think he was as big as he is.
Well, even another sort of indicator as to what people had thought of him prior to kind of breaking out is when I was doing my research, he's not even in Card Ladder.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to them and I suggested that they put him in, and they're awesome people over there. And I think today we'll have him up there. Kind of a postscript on that note too. If there are any Card Ladder users, and you've probably noticed that Shesterkin hasn't been in Card Ladder either, they know they're putting him in today too. I think that's because they're not hockey experts, of course, over there. And as most know, Shesterkin 2019 Young Gun was an SB Authentic, was considered an Upper Deck update. Those cards now appear in Extended. And so it's sort of understandable why they would have missed him. But obviously with the reigning Vezina Trophy winner, probably be good to have in Card Ladder. And so I know they reached out to me today and said that they were working on that as well. And if you are interested in Card Ladder, there's a link for it in our show description that helps out the Gong Show. So yeah, good Card Ladder notes there. Have you seen Buffalo play yet?
No. I just highlights every now and then. I need to sit and watch some games. If I could have some free time, please, and come home.
Yeah.
Maybe this weekend, because we have one game, so I should have a couple nights to maybe try to watch some stuff.
Oh, I haven't even told you this. This is totally off the rails, guys. But
what are we going to? We going to a card show or something?
No, my daughter has a hockey tournament out of town in Brainerd. We are interviewing Billy from Upper Deck. So I need to find a room with Wi-Fi.
Well, there you go.
Brainerd, Minnesota. So if there's any listeners in Brainerd that, or maybe call our hotel and beg for early check-in. But yeah, the hockey life is real over here at the Gong Show, and they're doing lots of show gymnastics around hockey schedules lately. So, okay, last guy who's hot is another guy we probably could have talked about in the last couple of weeks. Mr. Jack Eichel, the 2015 rookie, has 20 points in 17 games, 10 goals, 10 assists. Troy, to me, it seems like he's really found a home in Vegas. And other than that, too, it looks like his neck injury or injury issues seem to be behind him right now, which is kind of fun to watch him hit his stride again. His team, the Golden Knights, is tied with the Devils for second in the NHL with 26 points. So not only is Eichel having a good season, he's on a good team. And we know from a hobby perspective that is generally a recipe for growth, in value. Okay, so his career high for points was 2018 when he had 82 playing for the Sabres. He's definitely on pace to exceed that this year. He's also pacing for his first 40-goal season in the NHL, which I think would be a big deal from a hobby perspective as well. And Troy, he's still just 26, right? So she should just be entering his prime right now.
Yep, still 26. One thing I noticed about Eichel that I really like about him is it actually looked like he's made an effort to step up his defensive side. Obviously, that doesn't help his scoring. But if you look at his first years with Buffalo, he was brutal. And if you look at his plus-minus, again, my caveat, plus minus is an end-all be-all, but it was pretty bad. And with Vegas, he's kind of turned that around. Probably part with the team, but part I think he's focused a little more of that on his game.
Well, his defensive effort may not help his scoring, but it helps my Calder dark horse candidate, Logan Thompson. That's for sure. So thank you for that, Jack. His 2015 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 883 last sold for $238 US and is up 39% over the past 2 weeks. All-time high for this card was $625, set in January of 2021. I was thinking a lot about, too, and we weren't real active in the hobby in the 2014, 2015 timeframe. But don't you remember how when McDavid and Eichel came out, like they were like 1A and 1B? Sort of, it reminded me of like the Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf kind of conversation, right? Where it was sort of, I remember it being a debate who was going to be better.
You said that. I need to go through my daughter's cards. I'm pretty sure she has an Eichel Young Guns in there. Because that's what she was buying and looking at cards and getting into it. She has binders. She has like 4 full binders of cards. But I'm trying not to steal her cards.
I'll try harder.
I'll try harder.
That's what I would do. So and going back to what we were saying about the Rantanen thing is that's one thing you could say about Vegas to this point, even though they took a little bit of a step backwards last year, but they've been very good. They just haven't had that superstar player, and maybe Eichel is the guy that finally emerges and takes that perch, I guess, as their number one guy. Oh, there it is, Troy. The struggle bus is back. I know lots were disappointed it didn't make last show, but with gas prices as they are,
that thing
to bring the struggle bus to Troy.
You think that thing's going to Canada? Forget it. The struggle bus can barely make it, 10 miles down the road without breaking down.
The struggle bus is not a 2022 automobile. It's a 1978 International, right? I mean, it's an old school bus, but it is here. And hopping aboard here, Troy, we're going to start off with a couple of goalies. I guess when you have record scoring in the NHL, a byproduct of that is you're bound to have some goalies that are personally struggling.
Yep.
So the first guy I see here is the big cat, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Sounds crazy just thinking.
I was going to say it's like sacrilege. He's been so good for so long. How can you? Did they just pick him up on accident? I mean, what happened?
Well,
no,
I'll let you decide.
No, he deserves it.
I would say his year has not been fantastic so far. With 11 games played, he's 5-5-1 with a 3.1 goals against average and an .898 save percentage. 2022-23, so this season is pacing to be the worst season of his 9-year career. Currently, he's 49th in the NHL in save percentage. And his goals saved above average, which is a stat that I learned from you, Troy. So all credit and honor goes to you, is minus 2.49. Not great, huh?
No, not great. I mean, it's basically he's a little worse than the average replacement goalie you could put in net, which sounds, I can't even think, that just sounded weird coming out of my mouth. That's crazy.
Absolutely. Based on his standard, it's been a really rough start to the season. Looking at hockey cards, his 2014 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 166. The last sale was prior to the season start, which it sold for $745. So it's hard to judge there. And so I looked at his BGS 9.5, which is a Pop of 109. And it's had 2 sales since the start of the season. Both were around the $250 US range. Prior to that, though, the most recent sale was in May for $468. So whatever you buy, expect it to be down, especially from the comps towards the end of last season. Okay, so we go from bad goalie to brutal. I don't know if you've seen this yet. This is kind of makes me sad. I'm going to try not to rub it in too much. So your guy, Troy, from the Columbus Blue Jackets, Elvis Merzlikins. In 9 games, he's 2-5, Troy, with a 4.74 goals against average and a .864 save percentage. Obviously, the team is struggling as a whole, but he hasn't helped much, especially since he's their number one goalie. He ranks dead last in the NHL in goals against average, 73rd out of 73 goalies that have played. He's second to the last in save percentage.
Ooh.
And let's go back to your big stat here, Troy. Goals saved above average is currently minus 11.
This, in conjunction with those other two, just shows how much he is struggling.
Yeah, I'm not even sure he's on the struggle. I think he's in the trailer that's connected to the bus, right? I mean, it's that bad for Elvis. And it's gotten a little brutal and sad from a fan perspective, too. So I guess apparently last week his wife and young child were subjected to some verbal abuse from fans while at their home arena. So it's getting a little bit ugly there. So I think then he kind of came out and asked people not to be nice to his wife. I was reading some articles that said in general he's had a good relationship with fans. But yeah, I definitely understand a fan being frustrated given his start. But yeah, it seems
don't be a donkey and take it out on his family. What did they didn't do anything to you? Is your life so bad that you have to yell at the goalie's kid and wife? I mean, come on.
From a hockey card perspective, he's a 2019 Young Gun. His PSA 10 has a pop count of 167. Last sold on November 6th for $61 US. It had gone as low as $34 a month ago. So I don't know how it doubled in price in the last month. Out of curiosity, too, Troy, I checked his raw Young Gun sales, and it most recently hit the dreaded 99-cent auction level, and that's, in case anyone's wondering, that's with $4.75 shipping, so it's not like it's like $15 shipping. So if you happen to still be a believer in that Elvis will turn it around, you might be able to pick him up for next to nothing right now, especially on the raw side. I don't think you can play worse than he's played, right?
That's very, very kind words. I don't think you can get any worse than you are.
Well, so you should only be able to go up from here. But
I'm more disappointed you didn't make a Elvis has left the building joke or something.
Looks like Elvis has left the net wide open, is what you should say. So he's probably would make our struggle bus all-star team to this point, I would guess.
I didn't even think about the Struggle Bus All-Star team. We're going to have to start putting that together for when the actual All-Star rosters are announced. Screw that stuff. We're just going to have a Struggle Bus All-Star team.
We're doing that for sure. Oh, that'd be amazing. Okay, last guy on the Struggle Bus, keeping up with our St. Louis Blues theme. I feel like we got to put Ryan O'Reilly, Troy. He's the captain, and he's up to a pretty rough 2022-23 season so far. In 14 games played, he has all of 5 points, 3 goals, 2 assists. He's also minus 12 in plus minus. As we talked about last week with Jordan Kyrou and Jake Neighbors being on the struggle bus, the Blues are not off to a great start as a whole, and all these guys really having off years are definitely contributing. They're currently last in the Central Division with 12 points as a team. And so I think you compare them to when we talked about Eichel, right, being on Vegas at 26 points. For second in the from the top compared to 12. It's hard for me to think of O'Reilly and not think of him being basically every other vet insert in every pack. 2020-21 pack I opened. Is that just me, or does everyone else feel like that too?
No, I know I do, because we've talked about it. I have a huge collection of Ryan O'Reilly inserts in my boxes. I don't know why. It seemed like every time you opened a pack, it's like every other pack was a Ryan O'Reilly, some kind of insert.
Especially stature.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also feel, I just looked this up, but I feel like Ryan O'Reilly's like 41 years old. No, he's 31 years old. I feel like he's been in the league so long. I know he started when he was 18. I just feel like he's been around forever, but he's not that old where his numbers should be tailing off. Maybe a little bit, but so you kind of laid out the points, what's going on.
Okay, have you looked through all the notes, or can I tell you not to look and blow your mind?
Okay, I did not read.
Okay, don't read anymore. Okay. Don't read anymore because I'm going to blow your mind. I'm pretty confident of that. Okay, just to finish up, kind of where he's at. He's pacing for 29 points. A bit of context: he scored more than 50 points in 9 straight seasons. You're also starting to hear trade rumors, which is never a good sign when it's your captain.
Yeah. On
the trade block, he's saying he wants to stay in St. Louis and feels like he can turn it around, which I guess you'd expect him to say, but yeah, not going well so far for the Blues. From a hockey card perspective, is 2009. Because I think this goes back, you commented on how long he's played. Young Gun, there really isn't a PSA 10. His BGS 9.5 has a pop of 20. And that last sold for 110 in June of 2021. Right? So it's been more than a year. So it's really not much to report card-wise. I would just expect any value to be low. Okay, so here's where I'm going to blow your mind.
All right.
I think. I'm pretty confident. He's the captain of the St. Louis Blues, right?
Yes.
He is, because I looked him up. So that's not... That's a pretty prominent... That makes you a pretty prominent hockey player. And because I couldn't find any sales on his like rookie PSA 10 or BGS 9.5, I got curious and I'm like, well, from the start of the season, how many Ryan O'Reilly cards have sold? 0.
Wow.
In Card Ladder, there's 0 sales since the start. So a month into the season for any Ryan. And I'll go back to, it felt like he was in every pack we opened of 2020, 2021 cards.
Did you actually go to eBay and see too?
I didn't.
Because sometimes, I'll do it on air, because sometimes they do miss.
Yeah, and that wasn't the point that it's an absolute 0.
That's interesting. That is interesting. That I would never guessed that.
And I didn't check too. I know like when you have like names like O'Reilly, some people put the apostrophe. So I just spelled his name correctly. And I'm like, okay, this has to be an error. So I copy and pasted it from Google to make sure I wasn't goofing up the spelling of his name. And I did from October 16th through today, and there was 0 sales in Card Ladder. He's a captain of a pretty prominent NHL team.
I just looked in Card Ladder. I found a ton of sales.
What?
Yeah. eBay, $37.09 on November 6th, November 1st, October 30th. I think did you put one L in his last name?
I copy and pasted it right from...
Yeah, I found I found tons.
Ryan? Oh.
Did you put the hyphen? Oh, whatever hyphen, REILLY.
Okay, how many sales do you show?
I show at least 1, 2, 3. And you're saying just from the beginning of the season? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 since October 1st.
Oh, I did October 16th, so there's 7. Okay, so I don't know what the heck was going on last time, so I'm wrong.
That's all right.
But we can leave this in.
Yeah.
Because but maybe not as mind-blowing as 0, but holy cow, talk about being hobby dead.
Yeah. He is. He's one of those guys we've thrown in that category that obviously prominent player in St. Louis, center, captain, but just 0 hobby value or love.
That's so weird because I did the search like many times, but oh well. So 7 sales in Card Ladder probably means there's like 15 sales in eBay or something like that. Again, I would just say it's a clear indication the hobby hype is on 0 for Ryan O'Reilly. Okay, so that's the struggle bus and who's hot. So just to quickly recap, we had Mikko Rantanen, Tage Thompson, Jack Eichel for who's hot. We had the big cat, Vasilevskiy, Elvis, Merzlikins, and Ryan O'Reilly on the struggle bus this week. So let's switch gears and go on to Expo recap. This might be pretty short, but I just wanted to add this, Troy, just in case. And I don't even know if I remember a couple of things that we had talked about in the last couple of days, just as a catch-all for anything we forgot on our recap show. So feel free to chime in with anything that comes to mind. The first thing that, and we wouldn't have known this on Monday, but I guess observation that I've had is I have yet to see here I go again, making an absolute statement, just like I did with Ryan O'Reilly. I've yet to see a negative post or reaction to the Expo. I really haven't. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't any. I just haven't seen them.
I think even if there are, it's been overwhelmingly positive. The reaction has been overwhelmingly positive.
That's my takeaway, right? Is that on a percentage basis, it seems like, and there's been a lot of people posting about the Expo. In the hockey hobby, we've heard from people that weren't there that said, geez, it looks like it was such a great experience and turnout and everything that there's a lot of fear of missing out or FOMO going on. And so, I don't know. I just think that that's pretty awesome and really good for the hobby to, if the vibes were kind of negative or down coming out of the Expo, that would suck.
We did get a message as we were recording right now from Mikey Singer that he will send us some stats. I don't know what the stats will be. Hoping it's like attendance or some other things, but we'll kind of hopefully get a little bit of a better data point and vibe on some of the analytics of the show. But we'll see if they release that in the next week or so. Because we were always wondering kind of about how many people are actually there. So I think that'll be interesting.
Absolutely. I would be shocked if the stats are bad, and I think it's good for them and good for the hobby to publish those. The other thing I had was a note on the Upper Deck redemption packs. So, and I think we explained how this worked on the last show, but quickly, if any vendor there that was an Upper Deck diamond dealer, I think they had like a gold balloon that Upper Deck had given them. And if you bought a hobby box of Series 1, there was a couple other qualifying boxes, I think like Series 2 from last year, and I can't remember exactly what they were, but it basically sealed hobby boxes, and you took it over to the Upper Deck booth. They would unseal it, right? They would take the shrink wrap off and cut the tape or seal on it and give you a redemption pack. So I did hear on Sunday they ran out of those, which to me tries a good news, bad news situation. Obviously, if you're there and wanting a redemption pack, you're probably pretty bummed out. But I think it means that probably the popularity was of that and sales were stronger than Upper Deck had anticipated. So I think overall it's more of a good thing, but I can see you being bummed if you didn't get one. It does sound like, from what we've heard from people and that have seen like our pack openings, that there are, and I don't have any context for this, so it's really hard for me to give a personal opinion, but that maybe like the amount of autographs in the redemption packs or just the quality of the cards was maybe a little bit lower than in previous years. They're basically glossy Parkhurst fall promo cards that we got. But like I said, it's hard for me to comment because I don't have any personal experience beyond just the show that we were at. You tried to get an auto. Who was your auto again?
Oh boy. Ben Hutton. Does that sound like a hockey player?
Who's that?
Does that sound like a hockey player? I remember when I opened it, I went, whoa, who's this? Oh no. Yeah, Ben Hutton. He's a hockey player. He actually plays in the NHL. Who's he play for? Plays in the NHL. Vegas.
Oh, okay.
He has only played one game this year, though.
Well, you only have one autograph. So
there you go.
Anything else in the expo that I feel like there's like things that we said in the last couple of days to each other that we got to mention on the podcast, and then of course never wrote down and forgot?
I think we've hit all the points, so we'll make sure to bring it up if it's important. But no.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Hobby news. You may have seen on Instagram we posted about the PSA October grading report. I thought it was interesting for a couple reasons. First of all, in October there was 2 hockey players on the list of top 10 sports cards that were submitted to PSA. Number one the first of those was Moritz Seider, who was the second most submitted hockey card. And again, this is of all sports cards. So we're talking Ken Griffey Jr. rookies, Michael Jordan cards, anyone. And
he was number 2 submitted card overall.
His young guys.
Gotcha.
And then Lucas Raymond was the number 4 submitted card.
Okay.
Right. And so if you kind of like think logically about it, right, again, you have to look back. This is from October. So these are people anticipating we're gearing up to the new season. Here's a couple of guys out of Series 2 last year that came out in beginning of June that have a ton of hype. Let's send them in to get graded to flip them. As we know, Seider hasn't played that great. Raymond's been somewhat mediocre, but trending better over the last couple weeks. But kind of gives you an idea, again, where people's heads were at leading into the season. And then we'll start to see in the November report, how people like, will Tage Thompson or some of these guys be pretty high on I don't know if they would make it into the top 10 overall sports cards. But so the other thing PSA broke down is the top 5 hockey players submitted. And there is an interesting bit of nuance in here that we'll get to in a second. So number 1 is Wayne Gretzky, who's always number 1. So it seems like from now to the end of time, more and more Wayne Gretzky slabs are going to be coming in the market. The second is Kirill Kaprizov. Third is Seider. 4th is Raymond, and then Connor McDavid. So again, let's go back to the most cards submitted. Seider's Young Guns was number 2 in all of sports cards, but he's number 3 in hockey cards behind Gretzky and Kaprizov. And, Gretzky makes sense. You look at Kaprizov, so it means that there's, whether it be platinum or what other cards besides the Young Guns, is that, and a lot of those cards for Raymond and Seider are not out yet. And we'll get to that in new product releases. But it's also, I thought, a little mildly interesting to see that Connor McDavid get knocked down a couple pegs in October, right, by Kaprizov, Seider, and Raymond. I would expect, given how he started, or I would be pretty shocked to see him not back up to number 2. I don't know if anyone will eclipse Gretzky anytime soon when we look at November's report. Anything else stand out to you about that, or?
No, I had to do I'm glad you explained it, because I was doing the mental or gymnastics in my head where it's like, how can Seider be 3 and Raymond 4? But then that's the overall just number of cards per player. That's why Kaprizov's 2, and he's not in the hockey. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, looking at a couple injuries real quick. Your guy, Troy, your buddy, BFF, Marc-Andre Fleury, is being evaluated for an upper body issue. Did not practice today. I don't know if you watched the game last night. So this is when they played. Who did they play last night? I watched the whole game.
The Nashville?
I can't remember.
Nashville, I think.
Oh, yeah, Nashville. He got creamed a few times.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if this is a result from that. And then you had a note about Podkolzin. I'll let you cover that.
Yeah, it was just funny to me. Vasily Podkolzin is out. And when you look in the injury report, it says, part of body. It says face. So he has a face injury after his first career fight. So let's hope old Podkolzin gets either a little better at fighting or just doesn't fight anymore, because it's not good when your first career fight you got a face injury and now you're on the injury report.
No, not good at all. Last known hobby news is, remember on. Oh yeah, we didn't have any card show shoutouts for today. So if you want us to shout out any shows, I don't know if there's just not a lot going around the expo, but. Or unless hopefully we didn't miss any.
Or else you said, we totally missed it. Then you can yell at us. Send us a nasty gram.
Yeah, send them to us so we can shout them out on next Thursday's show. Okay, excited about this try. Want to talk about some 2022-23 Series 1 Young Gun values. So it's out, and as we anticipated, there's been a pretty good, I think, hobby response. On last Thursday's episode, we gave our feedback and reactions to the design, the quality, looking at the inserts we liked, etc. So if you missed that, you might want to go check that episode out. Also, I would say, as expected, though, for this new crop of Young Guns, that values came out of the gate pretty high, as they always do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if people have been asking us, well, when are you going to talk about this? I didn't want to talk about it within the first few days, because it's like we're almost not on planet Earth. Those first few days, you have sales that are
even
so
sales.
insane.
You have people listing like the veneers, just the raw Young Guns. I saw one listed for $500 the first day. I'm like, well, I hope no one buys that, but you never know.
Yeah, it's craziness, man. So I think it's better to wait a week, and all the data we're going to look at is really from the last 2 or 3 days, right? Because it gets kind of over that first initial insanity. So looking at some of the key values, I have how many guys here? I'm not going to go through all of them. Kind of the top 6 guys. So we'll start with Beniers. I'm only looking at the regular Young Guns, not canvas or high gloss or clear cut or anything like that. So right now his standard Young Guns is averaging about 75 US raw. There's also been 124 total sales. Now, when I'm giving this total sales stat, this includes everything.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be good. So it includes Young Guns canvas, it includes clear cut, high gloss exclusives, if any of those have sold. But I just wanted to give, over the first week, kind of an indication of how many people are buying any version of a Beniers Young Guns. So 75 US raw and about 124 total sales. Boldy, this is kind of mildly surprising to me, right now is selling for about 80.
That's crazy.
US, so about $5 more, and has 139 total sales. So 15 more sales than Beniers and about $5 more. This whole Boldy thing is really starting to perplex me a little bit, because as guys that watch the Wild all the time, I haven't been unimpressed, but I also haven't been super impressed with him to date. And we keep hearing, and we heard this a lot at the Expo when people know we're from Minnesota. Oh my God, Boldy, he's so amazing.
Well, what did Upper Deck shirts have? Do you remember the shirts
Yeah.
they were wearing? They had the Young Gun, Matt Boldy's Young Gun on the front and the back of their T-shirts. And I think
True.
part of Boldy's deal too is it's like he's playing bad. So if you're a kind of casual Wild fan, or even not a Wild fan, but you just look at his stat line real quick, you're like, oh, 16 games, 11 points. He's looking like he could be something. So I bet that's helping his sales too, or his average value also.
We keep hearing too that he's doing amazing in fantasy, and neither of us play fantasy hockey, so I don't understand the context there. And maybe too, it's a little bit of recency bias on our front, Troy, because nobody other than Kaprizov has scored for the Wild in about 5 games. So it's pretty tough to be excited about anyone there. Okay, moving along to Owen Power. So his raw Young Gun is selling for about $50 US on average. He has 100 total sales to date. Then there's kind of a big drop off. So the 3 main guys are Beniers, Boldy, Power. And then the next group I looked at were Kent Johnson, Jack Quinn, and Marco Rossi. So Kent Johnson's about $22 US on average, 73 sales. Jack Quinn, 20 US on average, 82 sales. And Marco Rossi, $23 on average, 105 sales. So again, strong sales comparative too for the Wild guys seem to be doing well. Beyond that, here now I'm nervous about my card ladder searching. So hopefully this worked out. If you search 2022-23 Young Guns, right, just that in card ladder, and I from November 9th through today, I saw 1,260 in sales. Right, I was just curious how this class is selling overall.
Well, remember, this is just giving you a data point and a more likely, it's not a 100% accurate number. It's giving you a kind of a trend or a 80% accuracy. We'll call it that, right? If you have 80% accuracy, you're good.
Then I wanted something to compare it to. And you can't compare it to Series 2 because if you just search for 2021-22 Young Guns, because all the Series 1 will be included in that. So I went back to Series 1 last year and I found, okay, when was Series 1 released? It was released on March 2nd. So I did the first week of when Series 1 came out and compared it to this week. And so remember, for what I'm seeing for 2022 in the first week was 1,216 sales. For Series 1 of last year in the first week, I saw 1,511 sales. So it seems like total sales are down about 20% comparing Series 1 of last year to Series 1 this year. So that begs, well, why? Right? And I don't know if there's any way of knowing. There's so many variables.
Yeah, there's so many variables
that they'd have to isolate. Is it because last year Series 1 releases March 2nd, which is deep into the season, and you've had a lot of time for rookies to build on their reputation, hype, and stats, and maybe that made people more excited. Or you could look at, did collectors view last year's crop of Series 1 Young Guns as a better class?
That's where I would lean towards, but again, we don't know.
You're comparing Caulfield and Zegras and Swayman to Beniers, Boldy, and Owen Power. Or is it an indication of the current macroeconomic conditions or the sports card market? Any of those could be a factor or the factor or part of the factor. You just don't know. There's probably stuff I've missed too. Just to kind of further examine and compare. So not only did I look at total sales for Series 1 in this past March, I also looked at the top 3 guys, right? Caulfield, Zegras, and Swayman, and looked at, okay, the last 3 days of the first week, what were their raw Young Guns averaging? And Caulfield was about 120 US, Zegras was 120 US, and Swayman was 53. And again, comparing that to Beniers at 75, Boldy at 80, and Power at 50, definitely down in that area too. And here you have to go back to what's the reason? I have no idea. Definitely not the hype around these guys that we saw with last year's crop. We will continue to track Series 1 sales. We'll probably start to look at some insert sales. We'll look at some of the other versions of Young Guns and some of the higher end stuff in the next few weeks to kind of get an indication where those are going to. I do want to touch from a new product release perspective, Troy, on not that there's any news beyond, not that I really expected it either, after Series 1 coming out last week, but I have a couple questions that I want to run by you. So to me, the key question is, or one of them is, do you think there will be another release in November other than presumably Series 1 retail?
I don't think so. I was fingers crossed the cup was going to come out in November is what I was hoping. We know it's there. We know it's getting made. We've seen the pictures from a hidden camera in a conference room or whatever that was. But with Series 1 just coming out, I can't see the cup coming back or coming out in November. Plus with the Thanksgiving holiday in the United States, I don't know if that plays into any of decisions by Upper Deck. I'm guessing besides retail that there will be no new products released in November besides Series 1. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's how it's leaning.
The only thing I don't know, and it's because we weren't doing this podcast last year, and we're certainly not looking at the market this closely, is do they typically do something in conjunction with Black Friday?
Good question.
Feel free to message us if you know that, I don't know, X product came out last year on Black Friday, or Upper Deck typically does something every Black Friday. It would be good for us to know, because honestly, haven't been through a Black Friday yet with, like I said, the podcast and looking at the market so closely. But yeah, if I had to guess, I would say no too. So that leads me to my next question. At what point, Troy, do you think it makes sense to cancel certain releases in order to catch up? Or what's the lesser of two evils in your mind? Would you rather have them get everything out and continue to lag behind? Or do you rather have them proverbially rip the Band-Aid and maybe cancel Synergy or Allure or some of these, not like crazy important products in order to get caught up?
That's a good question. I've been staring at this for a while because I love hockey cards and I want every release to come out. But if they go that route, and you got to remember too, I'm sure there's been work done on all these sets that aren't out yet, and I believe they probably have a hard time kind of throwing that away. Now there is precedence, right? They have canceled releases in the past, right? With COVID, I think there was a couple sets that might have got, I can't remember off the top of my head. I guess from a collector perspective, I want them to release everything and I don't care if there's a lag. However, I don't think they will ever catch up if they don't cancel something. That's my view, unless they come out, unless they're going to go we're going to have to release 2 or 3 sets in the same month. I just can't see how
the velocity has to pick up.
Yeah, they have to. If they want to release everything, the velocity has to pick up. Which I guess I would like to see it because I want as many sets and cards to come out as possible. But it kind of stinks having that lag.
So I did poke around online today trying to figure out what the latest is, and what's happening. It's already happened, but it's going to get worse as there's all sorts of scheduling weirdness now that is going on. So I guess if there's any sort of news, and I just was going off of Dave and Adams, but it's pretty consistent throughout all the big online retailers. So now you have 2021-22 Allure, Credentials, and Ice have been moved to end of December after Christmas holding dates. And then still at November 30th, which we know, again, these are holding dates, you have OPG Platinum, SP Game Used, SPX, Synergy, and Metal Universe. If you look at, and then there's the cup thing, which is a whole different story. But if you look at beyond those cards, Upper Deck has tentative release dates for like Ultimate Collection, Black Diamond, Artifacts again,
I was gonna say, I know I've seen
SP Authentic, right? So, I mean, we're going to be like hopping between years all over the place for, I don't know. And again, you look at, so we have Allure, Credentials, Ice, Platinum, SP Game Use, SPX, and Synergy, right? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 releases that are way behind and need to come out. And the train's already moving on all the 2022 releases. Unless they start pumping out 2 a month consistently, there's not ever going to get caught up. And I don't know what their capacity is to do that, or how the market could even, what would it happen to the sustainability of the market, right? Supporting 6 new releases in 3 months. Is that even possible? I don't know. But so a lot more questions than answers, but I just come back to the same thing, that we need to start seeing the velocity pick up if they're going to get caught up. And when you had, and this was last week we looked at, right? The time frame between Artifacts and Series 1 was like 6 weeks. That's just
do you think it would,
not going to work.
Do you think they could, if production hasn't started on some of these sets, maybe do a limited run and put them as inserts? Kind of like they did with COVID stuff, where they had to put like whatever update cards into these new sets. I don't know. I'm just trying to think if that maybe is a way they sneak around releasing the whole set. I don't know.
Well, here's my dream scenario would be to cancel some of these releases and put them in next year, have like a dual rookie class. But I would want them to keep the card design that they already have. But I don't know, but it would be I agree with you. It'd be a big, like, one of the things I'm crazy excited for are the color connected parallels in Allure. Yeah. And so if they ended up canceling Allure, I would be bummed. Right? I'm pretty excited for Credentials. All these sets I want to come out. What is it? SP Game Used has the big, like, what are those called? The
monumental patches?
The draft day, on draft day kind of nameplate patches, right? So, I mean, there's a lot. You have metal with PMGs. I'm not going to cancel that. I mean, Synergy is probably an Ice. But you have those Ice Premier cards that are really popular too for rookies. So,
and if you listen to me enough, the Ice logo bugs me. I don't know why.
And you're not a fan of Synergy. Yeah. You don't like metal either. So
yeah,
there's a lot of these you would probably lop off. But I think you even know your personal feelings on preference on metal aside, from a hobby perspective, they can't.
I like PMGs. Don't get me wrong. They're cool. Yeah.
So I guess that's the new product. Really, I mean, it'll be really telling. Honestly, if nothing has happened by as far as like, we should know what the next new product is. On next Thursday show, we might ask Billy too, see if he tells us. But if we're still sort of in the dark about what's coming out next, I don't think anything else is coming out in November at that point. Okay, listener mailbag. We have lots of questions again this week. Lots of really good ones, too. So pretty excited about these. And like we always do, we'll sort of alternate kind of who goes first to let each other play off of each other's perspective, I guess, a little bit. First question is from Jedi Master Grant on Instagram. Troy, do you think hockey would be more popular if Panini continued to make cards?
So I took the easy route and said, I'm not sure, because honestly, I'm not sure. So we know that Panini did produce hockey cards. I have some Panini hockey cards. They did for a handful of years. They look cool. They look kind of their foily or chromey design.
Well, they have Prism, which is obviously 2 years, right?
Prism, yep. And I will say this. And we're going to address this in another question that we got asked later, but I think the NHL going exclusive with Upper Deck, while maybe not everyone is a fan of these exclusive agreements, I think it's been extremely beneficial for the hockey card hobby. And I'm not sure if Panini still had the license, given some of what I've seen them do in other sports. I don't know if Panini would have done as much as Upper Deck to grow the popularity of hockey cards. I think Upper Deck is obviously seen as very collector-friendly and as really caring about the hockey card hobby. And listening to other sports cards podcasts and how they talk about Panini and how they've treated soccer and some other sports, I don't think Panini would have grown the hockey card hobby as much as Upper Deck has.
I think that's a good point. I agree with you, and maybe want to expand a little bit on what the benefits of having one partner are. There are drawbacks, right? You have less competition, and competition is good for any marketplace, right? I think that would help to make the card designs better, the quality better, the innovation better, the printing techniques better, right? That's just going to bring out, competition brings out the best in you. By having one partner, though, and I've really, really noticed this in the last 6 months, is, and I'm not sure if this is more so the NHL or what Upper Deck pushed for, but it seems like that those two organizations are in lockstep with each other. Like, the Upper Deck is everywhere the NHL is, and they're really partnering. They were the title sponsor of the draft this summer. At every NHL Global Series game, they've had a big presence. We have little kiosks or card stands now in NHL arenas. If you had multiple manufacturers, it would be awkward right, for the NHL to try to give those opportunities, right? Because you have to be fair, you have to do all that sort of stuff. And so I think that there are negatives, but the positives of it have enabled them to partner on a much closer level. And I really feel like we're going to see benefits from that. Okay, Nonstop Collectibles from Instagram. What's your favorite insert from Series 1? My turn to go first. So, okay, Troy, I always forget, where do we land on UD Canvas Young Guns? That's an insert, right? I know we've looked this up like 7 times.
I believe they call it an insert when you look at Beckett.
If we're right and it's an insert, I really like it. I don't know, maybe this is unpopular, but I'm really digging the black and white Young Gun canvas. To me, those are super cool. I also like Freestyle and Home Ice. What are your favorite inserts?
Yeah, so I said I really like the Freestyles. Just from the pictures, I haven't pulled one or held one and seen it in person, but I do like, it's kind of a unique style. It looks like graffiti, spray paint. I kind of like that. I dig it. It's kind of, I don't know. It's for the younger kids. No, it's one of those cards I think looks pretty decent. It's just in the pictures. Obviously, you said Home Ice. I did pull the Edmonton Oilers Home Ice card in one of my Series 1 boxes. And when I got home, I held it up to a light for a while, and then I turned the lights off, and it's really cool. It's got like 99 on the left-hand side. I was so tired when I did it. I really didn't see what the right-hand side was showing, but there's definitely something on the right-hand side, too, of the image. Very cool. Very, I don't know. It's just one of those little Easter eggs I don't think we knew about until the boxes came out that those were in there. And I will say I've seen some pictures online. I do like the look of the Fanimation cards that I've seen. I think Fanimation is growing on me. I know a long time ago in one of our podcasts, we kind of talked about things we'd like Upper Deck to do and something to get that relevant, or I don't know what I'm looking for, the prestige or the value of those kabooms and downtown, something like that. Fanimations have been around before those cards, but I think Fanimations are kind of growing on me. So I did like the look of the ones
I've heard comments though that they've gotten less comic booky. Like they would draw the players as
I love that. I love comic books. I collect comic books, but I love when what is it? Is there Marvel cards in like basketball or something? Or I think there's, I don't know. They look like comic books.
Yeah. There's Marvel cards and those are Panini products. Yeah. We have to digress here a little bit and talk about our hobby boxes that we opened because
I wasn't going to bring it up. I didn't want to get.
I'm going to be honest. I'm bitter. And so one of the things that Troy and I did at the expo was kind of a night way to, when we got back to the hotel from the show, just a way to unwind because we had the world's smallest hotel rooms. We each sat in the lobby and opened a box each night of Series 1 hobby, right? Kind of looking over each other's shoulder. So Troy, how many boxes of Series 1 have you opened that did not have a Matty Beniers Young Guns in it?
0. All mine had Matty Beniers. All my 2 had a Matty Beniers in it. And I got the Home Ice. Yeah. And I got hey, my boxes were great. I love my boxes.
And all I get are Coyotes players.
You did. You have what?
And you saw it in person.
I did. You have like 6 total Young Gun Coyote players, I think, right? That you've pulled from your Series 1.
Yeah, 2 boxes. I got 6 Coyotes Young. I did get an Overpower canvas, so that was like the only decently cool card I got. But yeah, boom, Matty Beniers. What's this card? Home Ice. Of course, it's Edmonton. Yeah. You get the best one.
Here, I'm just looking at my Matty Beniers, just to check it out.
All right, and we're moving on because it's getting emotional now. Okay, Top Shelf Cookie Sniper 88.
I love that name. I just love that name.
What players have surprised you with high productivity so far that you did not expect, and will they maintain through the season? Your turn, Troy. Right.
Every player is surprised. No, I'm just kidding. So I kind of went the goalie route. This one, I don't know. Maybe this isn't the right answer, or maybe this is what I was looking for. But to me, Jake Ottinger, how well he's played, how young he is. And I knew he had a great playoff series last year. I PC him. I didn't think he'd come out this hot. That was something that really surprised me. And then a couple more obvious goalies. Linus Ullmark. The guy is a world beater right now. And then Logan Thompson. Josh had that pick from the beginning. And Carter Hart. I mean, Carter Hart has struggled being in Philly for the last 2 or 3 years, and he's coming out of the gates hot. never expected that. I can always think to myself, oh, yeah, I know. I mean, technically he's really good. I think he'll be good. But did I think he'd come out and play like he has? No way. And then the only skater I put in, Erik Karlsson, I think is one that none of us picked. No one thought he was going to come out like he has.
I think this is a really good and interesting question, and it was harder for me to answer than maybe on face value, because I kind of separate this into two different categories. There's players that I just didn't know enough about,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's players that kind of truly their performance comes out of nowhere, like Erik Karlsson, right? No, there's no like reason why all of a sudden this year and maybe it's just he feels healthier or something like that, or what the issue is. But then there's this whole host of players, like we talked about Tage Thompson today, or there's Shane Pinto, where sure, if you just look at stats and compare one year to the next, you're like, whoa, these guys. But then when you dig in their story, you look at Pinto and how he was injured all last year, or Thompson, how his wife went through cancer and he, maybe had struggled a little bit. You kind of understand the narrative, I guess, a little bit as to why they're performing right now. And so, those guys I would say Thompson and Pinto surprised me the most because I just didn't know enough about them, just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think more of the pure surprise would be like Karlsson and Bo Horvat. Just as the amount of goals he's scoring is another one for me. And I don't know if any of these guys will keep it up through the rest of the season. I still think it's too small of a sample size to, a couple hot weeks, right? I don't know your feelings on this, Troy. At what point, is it kind of the midpoint of the season where they're just, or can the spigot shut off at any point? You just never know.
Yeah, you never know. There's so many different variables and things that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Alex Mac D7 on Instagram said, while you were at the expo, you mentioned a table that was selling custom displays. Do you know the name and if they offer their services online? Troy, you had an answer here, so I'll just let you take it.
I do. The name of the company is Payther Displays. Don't be a bonehead like Troy and try to search them up after Friday night looking up Panther Display, because I misread the name. It's Payther, P-A-T-H-E-R Displays. They do have a website, and they have a bunch of different displays they do, but there's a collectible section, and you can click on that and see all just the various stuff they can do, but they're very custom. I think you can almost get anything if you want. They'll make it. Obviously, you have to reach out to them. I didn't see like a store on their website. They more had the contact us kind of form, so you'd probably have to reach out to them and ask them what their process is. But I will say in person, these things looked fantastic, and I bet I'm not going to say how pricey they are. I don't know how pricey they are, but they definitely looked really, really cool and good. And they had everything, like baseballs, helmets, cards, record albums, anything you could want. They can probably make a display for it. So. Oh, and their Instagram is Payther Plastics, all one word.
Next question, Hockey Cards Up on Instagram asks, if you could collect one player for the rest of your life, who would it be? Only one. I'll let you go again first.
Yeah, I struggled on this one because I thought going through my head, well, if they're already deceased, do I have to worry? I'll never get another auto, like a recent auto. Do they? This was a really good question, a really thought-provoking question. So I kind of leaned back to my own personal PC, and I said Oettinger, just for how young he is and what I think his career will be, and he'll have a long run. And I would love to keep collecting his cards, and as if with Dallas, he gets those really cool Dallas Stars patches, which I like. So I think that I'm going to lean towards Jake Oettinger.
In case he's listening, would you like to apologize to Pekka Rinne now?
Yeah, but Pekka's retired. I still have a lot of Pekka collecting to do from his older stuff, and hopefully he gets in. I'm a sucker for the retired guys in new sets. I like it. I know some people don't like it, but hopefully I can still get him, but I think if I had to go for the rest of my life now, I'd say Oettinger.
The other guy, I'm kind of looking out the window to see if it's raining, and Pelle Lindberg's Tears from Heaven are coming down.
Yeah, because Pelle's just, there's really a limited, like me and Irish Flyer Collector kind of talked about this on messaging. It's really hard to find new images of him because there's such a short career, and the limited amount of photos, you see him reuse them the same, set of 5 to 10 photos on every card. So that, I don't know, to me that gets a little boring.
My guy would be Kaprizov. Explaining why is in my opinion anyways, he's the first and only ever Wild superstar. And we mentioned this before, but for how many years, like 5-6 years or whatever, we had Wild season tickets and we watched hundreds of games of dump and chase, and it was brutal. Some people might think Gaborik was a superstar, and it can but I don't think he compares even closely to Kaprizov, and so he's the one guy that from my team that I would collect.
Yeah, I think we all thought Gaborik was going to be a superstar when he scored 5 goals in a game, but kind of never. I don't know. He was on the cusp. Like I don't know. He was a great player for the Wild when we had him, but he kind of just never got to that elite superstar level.
Okay, next is from Branard Cards on Instagram. What's your best card? So I think the keyword here is best, right? And so for me, it's a pretty easy choice. And I did show a couple people this at the expo. It's my 2021-22 OPG Tim Stützle Invisible Printing Plate 1-of-1. Why is my best card? Because I'm very, very confident it's the worst 1-of-1 hockey card in the history of hockey card collecting. It's legit. It's a magenta printing plate that is honestly, it's pretty close to blank as you can
what
get.
Power microscope do you need to see any image on that card or that plate?
It's so ridiculous that in my mind it's priceless, and I'm not sure I would ever get rid of that card. Beyond that, I think the second best like hockey card that I currently have, and it's not most valuable, but it was my best find at a local card shop of the year. I do have a 2019 OPG Platinum Nick Suzuki Seismic Gold that is in really, really good shape. I think a good candidate for a PSA 10. And I said this card because I think that it has the most potential of any card that I have. Those Seismic Golds, people go crazy for those. I mean, if you think about like what are the core hockey cards, right? The 3 main cards, of course, are the Young Gun Base, the Future Watch Auto, and then the Cup RPA at a 99. And then if you say, okay, beyond that, what are the next handful of cards? I think Seismic Gold might be in there as far as reasonably attainable cards. And so I'm pretty pumped about that one. Your turn, Troy.
I do appreciate him using the word best, because to me, best is subjective. What I think is the best card in my collection, you might not think it is, but I really appreciated using best instead of value. I've talked about this card many times. It's my 1983-84 Pelle Lindbergh rookie. It's a 83-84 OPG. I have the highest grade version I have is PSA 9. I'm always kind of looking for the PSA 10, but I mean, I'm not searching it every day, but if I do find a 10 version that's for a decent price, I will pick it up. But I've explained many times on the show, to me, it is just the iconic goalie card, and I absolutely love it.
Okay, next question is from a long-term investment and collecting perspective, what do you think is the best vintage and current player or card to get now? I'll let you go here.
Yeah,
first.
I'm pretty safe on the current. I said Ovechkin. I think he started off the year as well as we could expect him to, and to keep his name in that conversation for the goal record, I think he's done an admirable job. So I would say current player is Ovi. And vintage, I went to a specific card route, the 51 Gordie Howe Parkhurst. That's a rookie card number 66. Seeing one of those in person at the expo, those Parkhurst cards, I just actually sat there and just stared at it. It was so sweet and cool looking. And I think a card like that, it's not the 52 Mantle, but do you really see that card ever going down? It's just one of those. I think it's just a steady climb.
Yeah, as a Mount Rushmore player, a Gongshow Mount Rushmore player. From a vintage perspective, I was a little bit different than you. I just said the 1979 OPG Wayne Gretzky. To me, it's the safest card in all of hockey. And then I was exactly with you on current player, and I picked Ovechkin. I'm confident. I'm looking not only the points he's producing already, but how he's skating around the ice and creaming people at his age is pretty amazing. The other thing too that has really impressed me about Ovechkin, and I'm not trying to offend any Capitals players here, and I just looked this up just to be sure. Is there anybody? So we talk about these guys like Troy Laikon who's hot, right? So you have Nathan McKinnon who's playing on who's playing on a line with like Mikko Rantanen and Arturi Lehkonen, right? And you have all these, you have the Kirby Doc and Cole Caulfield line and Nick Suzuki line for Montreal. Ovechkin plays with Yevgeny Kuznetsov, which fine. He's good, right? And then Sonny Milano. I just don't feel like that he, I don't know. To me, I just feel like that's not like, that's like a very, call it a B sort of line mates. Like he's not playing with top players. And he's still able to produce what he has. If he was on a better team and had better skill players playing with him, I don't know. I just think that it would make it so much more. I don't know. Am I making a point here or not?
I mean, I see where you're going, but again, he might have great chemistry with these two guys, and that's why he's being somewhat successful this year. So I get it. It is truly just chemistry. But the more skilled player you have, I don't know those other two guys well. I obviously haven't done enough research on them, but I see the point you're going to. But it's kind of hit or miss anyway. You could find examples both ways of that kind of stuff.
Okay, fair point. All right, we'll move on. How are collectors okay with monopoly in hockey? Will we go back to healthy competition? This is one we sort of answered. I don't think we have any, as collectors, we don't really have control, right? It's what the league ultimately and the Players Association ultimately decide to do. And we kind of talked about already sort of the pros and cons, right? The cons are of having one producer is there's not a lot of competition, and competition makes you better. And the flip side of that is the pros are how Upper Deck's been able to partner. And I think that we are lucky that Upper Deck in general has done a pretty good job, and they seem to really care about quality. They seem to be internally pushing the envelope. So I feel like we're in a pretty good place, but yeah, I'm not sure there's a right answer when it comes to this.
I get the question. I've kind of thought about this in the past too. But right now, the market we're in, it's the nature of the industry. These exclusive deals are the norm now. We see the other thing with the other major pro sport licenses. And then we've seen this in other industries, even like in one, obviously I'm familiar with, it's video games where the NHL license is held by EA or Electronic Arts. And along with, I think 2K might have the NBA. Sony, I think, might have MLB, but they changed that. Like, I can't remember. I shouldn't talk about the MLB one. That one's a little convoluted if you look at the language on how that one is worded. But while I think competition is good, I think it's just, like you said, it's what we're dealing with right now. We're in the era of exclusive deals. And like I said before, I'm glad Upper Deck is doing it. Now, you want to talk about, and I'm not obviously a business lawyer or anything, and how monopolies work or how they're defined in a legal sense. But the whole Fanatics buying 3 of the major licenses, that to me is a little more worrisome. Now, if Fanatics somehow got a hold of NHL too, then I'm going to have, that might be an issue. And I still am curious to see what happens, because I don't think Fanatics has got the legal clearance from the United States government or the Canadian government on that whole acquisition. Maybe they have, and I just don't follow it well enough. But to me, that's obviously a more pressing issue on the whole idea of monopolies right now.
I think that's a good way to put it. Okay, I'm combining 2 questions because a couple of people asked essentially the same thing. So we had Danny Edmond 16 and Matt Ciarnelio basically asked, hold or sell Jack Eichel Young Guns. Okay, Troy, you can take this one first.
I went quick. Hold. Coming into his prime, seems to have found a good situation in Vegas, and when you read your Jack Eichel, who's hot, he basically said that too. And I was like, there went my point on the user question.
I agree with you. Do what you want. If it was me, I would hold. I think the team and the fact that he's off to a great start is kind of that hobby recipe that typically leads to success if they can continue. Okay, last question of Mailbag this week. Would be nice to hear you rank all the Upper Deck products from favorite to least favorite and reason why. And this was by MTL Sports Cards on Instagram. Would love to do that, but it would take us literally forever since there's so many products. And so I and I hope you're okay with this, but took your question and broke it down into a couple of our favorites and least favorites. So I'll go first. On the favorite side, I love the flagship products because I love Young Guns, and especially now, a lot of the inserts. So I'm a big fan of all the flagship. My favorite set is probably OPG Platinum, even though I have horrible luck ripping it. But I mentioned the Seismic Gold. I love all the kind of the parallels, except Aquamarine. That's the one card, maybe my least favorite hockey card, but it's my favorite set. And then on the little bit of the higher end side, I really like Premier because I love the cleanliness of it, if that makes sense to you, Troy, or kind of the minimalist. I love the white cards with the bigger patches. I think it really accentuates the patch really well. I'm a big fan of Premier. Least favorite, and these are just personal preference. I want to make that clear. It's not because I think there's anything wrong with any of these sets. These are just personally the sets that I'm not super interested in. Personally, first one would be MVP. I totally understand its purpose. It's just not something that I dig. I'm not a big fan of artifacts, personally. There's a lot of things I appreciate about artifacts. I love that the patches are game used. I think that's a huge bonus. I generally don't like I think I like more modern designs, and artifacts by nature is a little more classic, right? And so I know there's people that are into that. My biggest beef, though, Troy, with artifacts is how tiny the jersey and patch windows are. I like cards with big patches if they're going to have them, more so than you get those two little tiny windows or one. I think some people might like that. It's just not what I prefer. And then my last one is, I'm not a big fan of the minor league sets. Not that they're not great. I'm just like to collect more NHL jersey cards.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your favorites?
Least favorite, obviously, for the points you said. I'm not a big MVP fan. I have I buy usually one box and open it. I actually got a pretty good. I got the rookies from the Pacific Division Redemption this year. But,
of course you did.
But MVP is probably, I would say, is my least favorite. My favorites, obviously, are Flagship. I really like Stature. So I think Stature, I love how it's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Cyberpunky kind of on the design. I don't know if cyberpunk's the right word, but it's got, I just really,
I feel that.
I really like the design. I actually do.
Because it's classic with a very, like the sheen of it gives it more of that. It's like that intersection between modern.
There's a word I'm going to kick myself when I remember it that I'm looking for that I can't find. I actually put Artifacts is actually one of my favorite ones. I like Artifacts. I get the small patches. I understand that. I don't think it doesn't bother me that much, but I did like how they added. There's a lot of numbered stuff, and it's probably just because I hit some cool cards that.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a trend here. Maybe I just buy all boxes from now on. And then obviously the cup, but that's kind of cheating. Those are that's every card. Oh, the cup's cool.
Is the cup real at this point?
We saw boxes. For how long do you think? 10 seconds I contemplated trying to buy one, but then I was like, nah, let's just wait for the new one to come out.
Yeah, there were a number of boxes, older stuff, but I kind of feel like 2020 Cup is like Santa Claus. Everybody wants it to exist, and kids think it exists, but once you're an adult, you kind of realize it's probably made up. So I'll believe the cup when I see it at this point.
Oh, all right, guys. Hold on. I figured out the word I was looking for Stature. Steampunk. They look like steampunk.
Oh, yeah, steampunk. What did you say, cyberpunk?
I said cyberpunk. I was thinking of the game, right? Cyberpunk 2077.
I was all tied up because I was thinking of the CryptoPunk NFTs, but steampunk is the right word.
Okay.
That is, there you go. Okay, now we'll wrap up. That is our show for this Thursday. Thank you all for listening. If you liked the episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you listen to us on. If you love the show and would like to support us and want to chat with us on the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server, please consider a $5 a month donation. Join our out of 99, numbered out of 99 support tier level on Patreon. You can go to Patreon's website, Patreon, and search for Hockey Cards Gongshow. There's also a link in the show description on whatever podcast app you are listening to us on, or you can go to our Instagram profile and you can find the link in our link tree there. If you're not following us on social media, we are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Just go to any of those platforms and search for us. And Troy, the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast is a production of Dollar Box Ventures, LLC. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you all on Monday.